Hello, welcome to the Autodesk Industry Advisory Board Annual 2021 Conference. Today I will be presenting on ISO 19650 International BIM Standards Overview and Certification. The presentation will follow the following agenda: Introductions and BRE Overview, Journey to ISO 19650, Concepts and Principles of BIM according to ISO 19650, BRE Hong Kong Regional BIM Annex Development, and benefits of ISO 19650 business certification. Before I begin, I would like to tell you a little about myself. My name is Sean McCormick, Senior BIM Advisor at BRE. My day job includes training, certification, and research relating to anything to do with BIM. BRE, or Building Research Establishment, is an international multidisciplinary building science organization with a mission to improve buildings and infrastructure through research, knowledge generation, and their application. Founded in 1921, our multidisciplinary teams include leading experts working in world-class facilities in virtually every element of the built environment, including BIM. Within the next set of slides, we're going to look at the journey to ISO 19650. To begin with, we need to look at how we arrived at the 19650 standards. To do so, we need to look at the drivers for change in industry that has led us to this point. Although there is no clear-cut date as to where the story begins, I want to take us back a few decades. The cost of poor information and poor coordination has been published for decades. In 1976, BRE published Coordinating Working Drawings. This publication surveyed the effect of poorly coordinated working drawings from 25 different construction projects. The report collated the results and displayed what were considered to be the key factors which caused poor coordination on these projects. Then in 1987, in an attempt to aid industry, the Construction Project Information Committee, or CPIC, was formed. Through this committee, several documents were produced to aid the construction industry overcome some of the inadequacies found in practice which were seriously impacting on the efficiency and quality of building work. Unfortunately, these documents were not well adopted by industry. So in addition to the publications being released by industry, the government were also issuing several publications of their own, and in 1994 the Latham report titled Constructing the Team was published, which was critical of the UK government industry, using several negative terms such as ineffective and adversarial. This report identified better project team integration as a means of achieving better value for money and made recommendations which suggested that a 30% reduction in project costs could be achieved. Then 4 years later, the Egan report titled Rethinking Construction was published, which looked at the progress the UK construction industry had made since the Constructing the Team report. The results were not positive, however. There was a deep concern that industry was still underachieving, and it suggested that industry had a low profitability and was not investing in research, development, and training. Rethinking Construction recommended further client involvement and better project team integration, noting that projects with client-led initiatives had seen dramatic improvements. Concluding the report, new targets were set, including an annual capital cost reduction of 10% as well as a reduction in post-construction defects by 20%. So tired of commissioning reports, Sir John Egan, Chair of BAA, wanted to ensure the effective delivery of Heathrow Terminal 5. To do so, he specified the use of standards, methods and procedures outlined within production information and engaged with Constructing Excellence and Avanti to ensure that the supply chain were sufficiently competent to comply with these standards, methods and procedures. After successfully saving 10% of the initial project costs, Sir John Egan commissioned the Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI, to replicate this process as well as measure and validate these savings on other projects. DTI in turn commissioned Avanti in 2002 to undertake this consultancy and a third party to undertake the measurement. Over the course of the Avanti program, a number of savings were identified, including 50% savings on time spent to assess tenders and award subcontracts, and 50% savings on efforts in the subcontractor's design approval. These savings came from applying the information management process developed initially by CPIC and then published in Production Information. As a result of poor uptake of CPIC, published in 1987, a revised edition combined into a single document and updated to suit CAD processes was released in 2003. as production information. It was released as a practical guidance on the preparation of good production information, making optimum use of widely adopted computer systems. Following this, and based on the success of the Avanti program, work began on developing the standards, methods and procedures used into a British standard BS 1192. This standard was published in 2007 and would become a code of practice, meaning that this way of working is seen as best practice and should be adopted without revision. BS 1192 covers core principles including common data environments, naming conventions, status codes, and revision codes. This standard was seen as the cornerstone for BIM Level 2 standards to be adopted upon. Then, following the mandate by the UK government for BIM Level 2 on all centrally procured government projects, in 2011, work began on the development of BIM Level 2 standards. Over the course of the next few years, a number of standards were released, notably PAS 1192 series, which included PAS 1192 Part 2, published in 2013, which specifies what information should be in the Employer's Information Requirements, BIM Execution Plan, and Master Information Delivery Plan, the core documents needed for information management. Following international interest, some of the UK BIM Level 2 related standards were incorporated into international standards ISO 19650 Part 1 and ISO 19650 Part 2. These two international standards published in 2018 incorporate BS 1192 and PAS 1192 Part 2. To continue the development of international BIM standards, in 2020, BSEN ISO 19650 Part 5, Security-Minded Approach for Information Management, and BSEN ISO 19650 Part 3, Operational Phase of the Assets, was published, replacing PAS 1192 Part 5 and PAS 1192 Part 3 respectively. By 2022, it is envisaged that BSEN ISO 19650 Part 4 will be published to replace BS 1192 Part 4, which is a code of practice for fulfilling employers' information requirements using COBie. As well as drivers within the UK, there have also been global drivers which have pushed for an international BIM standard. In order to improve outcomes for everybody, the World Economic Forum has said that we need global conventions to improve performance. To achieve this, an international standard for BIM has been developed and a number of recommendations made, which include articulating BIM's benefits across the entire life cycle and considering BIM as a value creator, not a cost factor. So as a result of the drivers for change, and as already mentioned, some of the UK BIM Level 2 related standards were incorporated into international standards ISO 19650 Part 1 and ISO 19650 Part 2 in 2018, incorporating BS 1192 and PAS 1192. Before we continue, I'd like to stop and talk for a minute about what the term ISO within an ISO standard is. ISO isn't an abbreviation, it is derived from the Greek isos, meaning equal. Whatever the country, whatever the language, ISO is always used as the abbreviated form. ISO is an international organization which was formed with a vision to facilitate the international coordination and unification of industrial standards. It was formed in 1946 to achieve this vision. Today, it has over 165 countries as members. Over the next set of slides, we are going to look at the ISO 19650 concepts and principles identified in ISO 19650 Parts 1 and ISO 19650 Parts 2. There is a lot of confusion around the term BIM. Some people believe BIM is a piece of software, some believe it's just 3D models, while others believe it's a process. To make matters worse, terms like building information model, building information modeling, and building information management are often used interchangeably, meaning that BIM has become a bucket term of sorts. What is required is a common understanding. When undertaking a BIM project, it is therefore vital to ensure that everyone is speaking the same language. ISO 19650 definition of BIM is the use of shared digital representation of a built object to facilitate design, construction, and operation processes to form a reliable basis for decisions. Building information modeling is used to produce coordinated design information and documentation, predict performance, appearance, and cost, and deliver projects faster, more economically, and with reduced environmental impact. To achieve these benefits, coordinated and reliable information is required to act as a single source of truth. This mitigates duplication, reducing ambiguity, and therefore improving the quality of information. Building information management, who produces what thing and when, has traditionally never been managed. As such, exchanges would often occur between project team members at different points in the project. This can result in different project team members receiving different information. Historically, the process has not been well managed. Despite this, projects can still succeed following this process, but it can often lead to inefficiencies, increasing the necessary time and effort required to complete tasks. Following the information management process, information is exchanged through a shared location where files are held for everyone to access. This means that there is a single copy of each file which needs to be updated, a single location to find it, a single source of truth, thereby drastically reducing the time and effort to complete the tasks. At the core of ISO 19650 standards is the information management process. An information management process is started each time a new appointment, formal or informal, is made and involves preparation of information requirements, reviewing of prospective task team including sub-appointments, planning for how and when information will be delivered in relation to information management capabilities, reviewing of information deliverables against information requirements, against the acceptance criteria, and establishment of each information requirement. The information management process should be applied proportionately, that is, in a way that is proportionate to the scale and complexity of the task. The information management process is defined by a sequence of activities typically undertaken on a project showing the process of information management through three main stages, including procurement, planning, and production. These include as follows. The information management process is started. Then per project there is an assessment and need and project closeout. Then per as appointment there is information procurement, which consists of the tasks within the invitation to tender and tender response activities. Information planning, which consists of tasks within appointment and mobilization activities. And information production, which consists of the tasks within collaborative production of information and information model deliveries. These are key areas the ISO 19650 Part 2 is dealing with, and although they are very similar to PAS 1192, they are worded slightly differently. However, the ISO is more definite on what processes need to be carried out and is more detailed on what needs to happen for each of these activities. Another key principle included within the ISO 19650 standards is the term functions. In essence, a function is a set of tasks or activities to achieve an objective. There are three types of functions defined, and it is essential that these functions are formalized in some way. They include asset information management functions, which include tasks in relation to the operation of an asset, project information management functions, which includes tasks in relation to the delivery of an asset, and task information management functions, which include tasks in relation to the production of information. To support organizations that have not yet adopted information standards, ISO 19650 has simplified the information management process. The responsibility for information management is distributed across the whole team, with individual parties being given specific tasks. However, each party has flexibility in completing these tasks. For example, they could delegate it in their team or even employ a third party to complete it. Another change in terminology between ISO 19650 standards and the original PAS 1192 is what members of the project are called. This is the appointing party, the lead appointed party, and task teams. Okay. The appointing party is supposed to appoint a delivery team, which is led by a lead appointed party, and they will have a number of task teams producing deliverables. The need is communicated through the appointments, including EIRs, and the deliverables of what is required is delivered up. When we talk about appointment, what we mean is an agreement or an agreed instruction for the provision of information concerning works, goods, or services. When we talk about An appointing party, we mean receiver of information concerning works, goods or services from a lead appointed party. And when we talk about a lead appointed party and task team, we are talking about a provider of information concerning works, goods or services. The ISO standard also talks about the need to consider the purpose of information for each stakeholder to support decision making. Each stakeholder on a project may wish to use information for a specific set of purposes. For example, from a project delivery perspective, it is used to plan and organize the work with supporting information which may come from a BIM execution plan. From an asset owner's perspective, it is used to make strategic business decisions with supporting information that may come from a strategic asset portfolio review. From an asset user's perspective, it is used to make sure that the asset has the right qualities and supporting information that may come from an asset information model. And from a society's perspective, it is used to make sure a community interests are taken care of with supporting information that may come from political decisions. This diagram has been adapted from a diagram originally in PAS 1192 Part 3, and it talks about the requirements for organizational management, supported by asset and project management, which in turn is supported by information management. It shows the split of an asset's life cycle in the delivery and operational phase, where A is the start of the delivery phase, where existing information comes into the project, B is the progressive development of information, and C is the end of the delivery phase. And the circle indicates the changes of modification or refurbishment to the asset that may occur during its operation. Other relevant standards include data quality, ISO 80000, information security management, ISO 27001, and risk management, ISO 31000. Many of the fundamental principles of information container-based collaboration working are unchanged between ISO 19650 and PAS 1192 Part 2, as the overall definition is the same. Some of these principles include the following. Authors only produce information they check and control and merely reference other information needed. Appointing parties provide clear, defined information requirements. Appointing parties consider the proposed approach, capability and capacity of each delivery team. Please note here that the term delivery team is new in the ISO and means the collective of the task teams and the lead appointed party, commonly identified as Tier 1, 2, 3, etc. There needs to be a provision of a common data environment as well. There also needs to be technology supporting the information modeling standards, and a whole life cycle approach to an asset information security should be put in place. Another key principle from the ISO 19650 standards involves the author's responsibility towards information production. This tautogram is used as a check for information authors to ensure their information is ready. Is the information clear? In other words, has it been produced with the recipient in mind? Is the information complete? In other words, the project's master information delivery plan is a document that sets out when things need to be delivered and by whom. Is the information consistent? Has it been produced in accordance with the project's information production methods and procedures? Is it coordinated? Has it been produced spatially, sourcing approved information by others? And finally, is it correct? Has it been produced in compliance with the project's information standards? That is, they need to go through the check, review, and approval process. As well as the need to consider the purpose of information, there is also a need to clearly define information requirements. The need for clearly defined information requirements goes back to the Egan and Latham reports we noted earlier, highlighting all the issues with the clients not defining what is needed. The process for clearly defining information requirements is defined within ISO 19650 as follows. The appointed party need to state what is needed. The lead appointed party provides a plan for how and when to deliver the information. The delivery team deliver it. The appointing party approves the information, or the non-approval are fed back, and the requirements, the plan or the delivery can then be changed as necessary. As noted earlier, there is a requirement to review the capability and capacity of the supply chain. This is an assessment of their commitment to comply with information requirements, their collaborative working experience, their technological knowledge of software solutions, and their human and other resources. There are several ways of determining capability and capacity. For example, in the UK, the government has published pre-qualification questionnaires, or PQQs, called PAS 91, but this does not exist internationally. PQQs are typically high-level, non-project specific questions used to establish a framework, a contract, or shortlist during multi-stage tenders. CPICS forms are also used, and these are pre-tender assessments. Typically, more detailed project-specific questions are used to establish the capability and capacity of the potential appointed parties. And then, of course, there's another way of determining capability and capacity, and that's through BRE Global Business Certification Scheme, which is a method of benchmarking capability and capacity through third-party assessments. In some instances, obtaining business certification can result in exemptions for pre-qualifications. With the single source of truth principle in mind, a core BIM process, the Common Data Environment, which is a process, not a software solution, was developed. Its origins relate back to the BS 1192 standards. There are four main stages or states within the process. These include work in progress, shared, both the client and the design teams, published state, and the archive state. So the states in broad terms are, for work in progress, which is a state where the author carries out their own work. For example, it could be the desktop of a laptop, a centralized server, or could be cloud-based SharePoint type solution. In this area, separate teams such as architects, engineers, and others can work using their own control systems. This is because the information containers are not approved and are not shared with other members of the project team. Once they have successfully been through the check, review, approve process, this information can move to the shared area. The shared area is where approved information has been delivered for the wider project team to use. The shared area also has a client shared area. This is used so that only information that the client needs to see can be shared. Although the information has been through an approval process, now it has to be checked across disciplines. For example, an architect may ask engineers to change something so the federated model is coordinated, and this will happen many times before it can be reviewed and authorized for publication for a particular use. For information to move to the published state, it goes through a review and authorization process for it to be published for a particular use. The use could be legal, planning, building control, tendering, essentially anything that there is a contractual purpose or requirement to deliver against. And then finally we get the archive or archiving state. Anything that goes through the gateways needs to be archived so that there is a record of whose issues what. Without this full tracking of authorization, it would be impossible to find any source of errors. Because we are now working in a digital environment which uses common data environment solutions such as A-Site, Viewpoint, or BIM 360 as examples, and we are producing information for projects which is potentially sensitive, cybersecurity is becoming more of a priority for organizations working in a BIM environment. ISO 27001 is the main IT security standard which was used to develop the security standards for security-minded approach for sensitive assets standards, namely ISO 19650 Part 5. Many companies are moving to ISO 27001 and adopting ISO 19650 Part 5 on projects. ISO 19650 Part 5 talks about asset information security and how the following types of security risks are dealt with, including hostile reconnaissance, malicious acts, and disclosure of sensitive information. Sensitive information includes intellectual property, commercially sensitive, and personally identifiable information. There may be sensitive information that employees do not want out in the public domain for security issues. For example, the CCTV system, that is where cameras are and where the power is and how they are dealt with internally. Most information within information models would be available to the supply chain. However, this type of information may only be available to need-to-know parties. The ISO 19650 also talks about the technology supporting the information modeling standards and what the technology solutions need to be able to provide. It asks the following regarding the common data environment. Does the intended technology solution utilize the specific attributes of status, revision, and classification codes? Regarding the approval process, does the intended technology solution support testing information against project information standards? Regarding the authorization process, does the intended technology support testing information against the exchange information requirements? And regarding the acceptance process, does the intended technology solution support testing information against the appointing party's acceptance criteria? At the back of the ISO 19650 Part 1, there's a diagram representing the life cycle of an asset, which aligns with the information management process already defined previously and captures the different phases of the information delivery cycle, including assessment and need, information to tender, tender response, appointment, mobilization, production of information, and operations and maintenance. By implementing the concepts and principles discussed in the previous slides to collaboratively produce a federated information model, an organization can said to be doing BIM according to ISO 19650 series. Through their BIM advisory services, BRE have been involved in a number of industry initiatives around the globe, including the development of the Hong Kong Regional BIM Annex. As already discussed, following international interest, some of the UK's BIM Level 2 related standards have been incorporated into ISO 19650 Parts 1 and Parts 2, including BS 1192 and PAS 1192 Parts 2. Through the course of the development of ISO 19650's Parts 2, the delivery phase of an asset, an international agreement could not be reached regarding regional standardized conventions and codification, and it was therefore decided by a technical committee to include the option on national annex to capture these requirements. An example of this regionalization of standards is classification. Within ISO 19650 Part 2, there is a requirement for information to be classified. Within the UK Annex, it states that the classification system to be used is Uniclass 2015. In other regions around the globe, such as the United States, the classification system commonly used is Omniclass, and so if the US were to produce an annex, it would be expected to list Omniclass as a classification system. Although the UK has already developed and published an annex, it is expected in the future that globally more national annexes will be produced to address regional standards and ways of working. It is worth noting that the image shown is a graphical representation only to demonstrate this and does not reflect which country currently has or is going to produce a national annex. In May 2020, BRE were invited to submit a tender for the consultancy services for the enhancement of BIM standards for Construction Industry Council to align the CIC BIM standards as Hong Kong Annex to the International BIM Standards ISO 19650. BRE were successful in winning a joint bid with Advanced Construction Information Development, or ACID. Together, a local annex for ISO 19650 was developed and published to satisfy industry requirements and align with the approach of information management using BIM as mentioned in ISO 19650. The documentation included all necessary information to satisfy the requirements of ISO 19650 Part 2. In doing so, the Hong Kong Regional BIM Annex paves the way for the government's initiatives, such as a roadmap for promoting and fostering the adoption of BIM in Hong Kong. I would like to finish this presentation by briefly discussing the benefits of ISO 19650 business certification. Certification is the process through which an organization grants recognition to an individual, organization, process, service, or product that meets certain established criteria. These organizations granting this recognition, such as BRE, are known as conformity assessment bodies who provide certification. When discussing certification, it is important to note that there are three types, namely first-party, second-party, and third-party certification or non-conformity assessments. Third-party certification provides assurance because the assessment has been carried out independently by a certification organization recognized by a national accredited body such as the United Kingdom Accreditation Service, or UCAS. Both first and second party certification cannot make this claim. If as an organization or individual you're looking for confidence in a certification scheme process which provides a robust, impartial audit process, then third party certification is the scheme to choose. In ISO 19650's Parts 1 and Parts 2 are the standards that set the conformity criteria for ISO 19650 certification schemes. It is important to note that ISO 19650 standards are designed for conformity assessment. This is because the ISO standards have very specific terms to set out specific requirements. One of the principles of ISO 19650 discusses the suitability of the use of the standards dependent on the size and complexity of a project, and that in some instances, for example very small projects, the use of all clause requirements is unnecessary. In these instances where not all requirements in a clause need to be met, then the term shall consider is used. However, where the term shall is stated within a clause, all requirements of that clause must be met. This language makes it easy to assess ISO 19650 standards within the framework of a conformity assessment such as the BRE Business Certification Scheme. As part of the BRE Business Certification Scheme and in accordance with ISO 19650, organizations are allocated their certification profile for the scheme. Each certification profile has several associated core tasks. The profiles covered by the scheme include appointing party, lead appointed party, and the task teams or appointed party. As a business undergoing certification, they will be certified under one of the three profiles allocated to them. As part of the scheme's requirements, businesses are required to demonstrate capabilities in each of the core tasks for the profile for which they seek certification, unless it is determined that one or more of these tasks is not applicable to the business. The BRE Business Certification Scheme provides two pathways for an organization to follow. The first of these is the ISO 19650 BIM Certification for Business route, which includes Stage 1 and Stage 2 of the audit process, and the second is the ISO 19650 BIM Prepared Certification route, which only includes Stage 1 of the audit process. Further details of the ISO 19650 BIM Certification for Business can be found on the BRE website. As a business being certified under ISO 19650 BIM Certification Scheme provides the following benefits. Firstly, third-party certification distinguishes a company's services from their competitors. This is because during the procurement process, a key issue is that the material provided by a supplier may only reflect skill sets or knowledge held by a select individuals or previously held by an organization. In fact, the capabilities described may only be achievable by what would be considered the organization's A-team, who are only available for high-profile schemes. Because of this, it may be difficult for clients to take a supplier's word at face value. Certification is one method of overcoming this by getting the suppliers independently verified, ensuring they are capable of delivering the capabilities they say they can. Another benefit is that ISO 19650 BIM certification provides confirmation by an expert third party that an organization's own processes and procedures continue to meet or exceed ISO 19650 standards and the scheme best practice requirements. So it is not just about client confidence, but also about providing confidence to the supplier that they can meet the competency levels expected of them on projects. This is ensured through an audit framework that all accredited third parties must apply, which includes a schedule of ongoing audits. Another benefit of note in the case of BRE BIM certification is that the scheme has been developed by BIM experts within the organization in collaboration with industry. This ensures that the product and service provided through the scheme is to the highest standard and level of competency. And lastly, ISO 19650 business certification helps fast-track the procurement process of a project. The supply chain assessment process normally involves the completion of supply chain assessment forms, which is time-consuming and at times risky, in that the organization completing them may not have the competency to do so. In most instances, if an organization has ISO 19650 certification, they are exempt from this process as their competency has already been confirmed. These are but only some of the benefits. Thank you. This brings us to the end of today's presentation titled ISO 19650 International BIM Standard Overview and Certification. My name is Sean McCormick, Senior BIM Advisor at BRE.
Thank you, Sean. It's a Q&A session now, and Sean, of course, here to address your questions. All right, so I've received so far 5 questions for you, Sean. Are you ready?
I am indeed, thank you.
Okay. Tommy asked, you talk about a business certificate. So does BRE provide certificate for individuals? And can you please provide details of the scheme and how to obtain a certificate? And also, could you please provide reasons for wanting to be certified as an individual in the BIM space? A long question.
Of course, yeah. I'll answer that in phases. So yes, indeed. As well as offering business certification against ISO 19650, we also offer that service for individuals. And there are 3 categories, 3 profiles in which we certify individuals under. The first is what we call the BIP, or BIM Informed Professional. The second and the third are the TIM and PIM, Task Information Management, and the Project Information Management individual certification. So to explain the first one, BIP, that's for individuals that are not really involved or don't have the practical experience on BIM projects. So typically that would be new graduates, or it might be people in organizations where they're at director level or management level, where they're actually not getting their hands dirty on projects. But what that certificate does is it provides competency for those individuals against the knowledge and understanding of the ISO 19650 series. Okay, the PIM and the TIM, that's more for individuals that are involved on projects, whether at project or task team level. And you would go through a conformity assessment process against the ISO 19650 series, but also you would be expected to show how you would apply those principles within case studies that you would present to us. Now, before you can undertake any of these individual certifications, you would have to go through our a training course. So we offer a two-stage training course. The first is the ISO 19650 Essentials training course, and that's then followed by the Information Management, ISO 19650 Information Management training course. Now, if you pass both of those courses, and I believe the pass mark is 70 on both of them, you then be eligible to go for getting yourself certified on one of our individual schemes. So I hope that explains everything. If you want more information on that, we do have that on our website. So you just need to go and visit the BRE website, our BIM section, and there it explains exactly what I've explained to you. In terms of why you'd want to, well, first of all, I think it's to prove to your employer, first of all, that you're knowledgeable with the latest standards and are able to apply them. That obviously not only improves your job prospects, but it provides your employee with the confidence that you're capable of working in a BIM environment and capable of delivering BIM to a standard which the clients are becoming more and more, they're expecting the delivery of projects to a high standard more and more these days. And I think, having that competency can only improve your job prospects, but also your organization's prospects of delivering a good project, but also obviously attracting more work in the future. If your clients are happy, you're going to attract more work in the future, aren't you? So those are the two main benefits, I guess, of becoming certified as an individual.
Very
Uh,
detailed answer.
okay.
Thank you, Sean. All right, the next one is from Nicholas Kwok. He asked, okay, does BRE offer BIM training? And if so, could you please explain what training is available?
Okay. Yes, we do. As I mentioned before, um, in order to do our individual certification, you would have to go through our BIM training, and so we do offer the BIM training. As I mentioned, we offer BIM ISO 19650's Essentials, which is a 2-day training course, and it covers uh, a number of units in that training course. And it meets a number of learning outcomes that are set out by the UK BIM Alliance, and it meets those. And then at the end of the 2 days, you would then be assessed. It's a multi-choice assessment. I believe it's 20 questions over 40 minutes, and it's open book. Then, as I said, if you pass that with a 70% pass rate, you're then eligible to go and do the information management, which is a more in-depth about the information management of on projects, and that there's also an assessment for that as well. So, in essence, yes, we do. Both of those training courses are either provided classroom-based. But of course, at the moment with COVID, we are able to deliver that virtually. The other option is, of course, we also have an online version of those courses where you can purchase a bundle from the BRE Academy, and you can go through the training online that way.
Thank you. As it's running out of time, and Sean will be here to
Yeah.
answer the last question. From George, is there a need to certify a company for a local annex instead of ISO 19650 itself?
Yes, so wherever you are in the world, part of the business certification scheme requirements, and as specified in our scheme document as well, is yes, you would be, wherever you are in the world, your local annex would be used as part of that assessment. Definitely, because it's about, the local annex contains your standards, methods, and procedures for at national level, which you would need to comply with. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sean, for your time, for your patience, and for
Yeah.
sharing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Apologies that I couldn't answer all the questions that were being
Yeah,
provided.
probably they will email you for the other
Yes,
questions.
indeed. I will respond via email, not a problem.
Thank you so much.